Thanks for listening to the Clive Barker podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the imagination of Clive Barker. Coming up next on episode 429, Jose and Ryan take another deep dive into the Boom Studios Hellraiser comics, this time with issues 5 through 8. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art. But Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. Click on the side banner and follow the link to his Etsy shop where you can buy the artwork where they've returned from the local galleries. There's new stuff in there. And I recently got my second one, Snailbait. All right, welcome. This is episode 429 of the Clive Barker podcast. Good evening, Jose. How's it going?
Hey, Ryan. It's going pretty good. Wow, 429, huh?
Yeah. Too many.
Too many. Yes, and we're going back into the world of comic books for Hellraiser, correct?
Yeah. So we've gone back to the Boom Hellraiser comics, and we're on the issues 5 through 8, which is the sub-series, right, that's called Requiem. So,
yeah. These were some of the best comics I've read so far.
Yeah.
Although
so far,
they're not perfect.
Still the same writing team, right? It's Clive Barker and Christopher Monfette, with art by Jesus Jervas. That's on the first one, and then later the art is by... let's see, Stephen Thompson and Janusz Ordon.
That's right.
Yeah, or Janusz with a Z on the end.
Janusz Ordon.
Yeah.
Issues 5 through 8, which came out in July, August, September, and October of 2011.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone had a great Halloween, and I just want to say happy birthday to Pete Atkins, whose birthday was on November 2nd.
Yay.
Big pal of the podcast, one of the leading figures of Hellraiser lore, and great writer of Hellraiser, which, if you have that new box that's coming out, the Quartet of Torment, he's in it. He's in it in the new feature, right? And there's going to be also a work print of Bloodline, and you can get his script of Bloodline from Encyclopocalypse Publications.
Yeah, I think he does an audio commentary.
Yes, yeah. And Stephen Jones, who was a publicist, also is in there somewhere. And I think you haven't really gotten into the Quartet of Torment box, have you?
I've taken the plastic off. That's as far as I've gotten with it so far.
I'm a bit miffed because mine in Amazon is still saying I pre-ordered this, weeks ago. And it's still telling me that my order is expected to ship now arriving December 28. What the hell, Jeff Bezos? Now arriving December 28. Previously expected December 15.
Jeff Bezos is personally over there slacking on packing your box.
If he's not, he should be. Yeah. He should be packing my box. God damn it. Like, look, I pre-ordered this. This hasn't even come out, right? Because this is supposed to come out November something.
You waited too long to order it.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's like, when is the official date for this? I think it was November 3rd. So there was yesterday. I pre-ordered this weeks ago. And I was like, okay, when November 3 hits, I'm probably going to get the shipment notification.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's telling me that I'm going to get this box by December 28th. That makes no sense for me. I bought the Blu-ray version, $109.99. It's a Pinhead cover. You got the Cheddar one? Is that right?
No, I got the Pinhead one. I thought I had ordered the Chatterer one, but then when it came, I'm like, what is going on? And I ran in and I looked at my order, and it's like, nope, I ordered the Pinhead one. I was like, I thought I'd ordered the Chatterer one, but no.
I've seen people with the Chatterer cover, and now I'm kind of jealous because when I pre-ordered this, I didn't realize at the time, many weeks ago, that it was going to be the Pinhead cover and the Chatterer cover. I thought the Chatterer cover was the other side of the box for a while.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's going to be like you take that box off and there's Chatterer on the inside or something. So I wasn't paying enough attention, and when I ordered it, And then I went back to check on Amazon. It turns out Amazon only has the Pinhead one.
But what's cool is there's 3 layers of like the different layers of the box
packaging,
off.
right?
Yeah, and there's holes and it reveals like flaying off different sections of skin.
I love it.
So you take off the skin and then you take off the muscle, and by the time you're done, it's just a skeleton underneath.
Yes, and it's die cut on Pinhead's face, so there's little squares that let you see through to the flayed figure, and it looks amazing. I hope this is just a weird glitch of Amazon, and that I'm really not having to wait until December 28th. But I guess we'll see.
I am really happy with this package, and I don't know if the Chatterer one had that kind of detail in it, if it had the same kind of cool effect.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted the Chatterer package, but I'm also really happy with the one that I got.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So sorry about this tangent about the Hellraiser Quartet of Torment. I'm just excited about this and mystified about this December 28th.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
shipping date for me.
We're going to have an interview about the Quartet of Torment pretty soon.
To find a way of maybe seeing that together, and if I don't have it by that time.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start out with the first issue, which is issue 5, the first issue of Requiem Part 1. So it's opening on with that creepy farmer dude, and he's got a cow that's tangled up in some barbed wire.
Yes, Samuel's farm. His name is Samuel Hess.
Yeah.
And he sees a cow, like you said, she's kind of stuck on the barbed wire, right?
Yeah.
And he ends up having to sacrifice her. But so the big cliffhanger in the previous issue was number 4, was that Kirsty got a text message from Samuel where she saw 3 of the harrowers that he had captured, and they were tied in a barn with 3 pieces of paper saying, "Give me the box," or whatever. Bring the box, I think.
Yeah. And so the implication was that if he brings the box, he's got her friends.
He's going to trade the box for her friends, or so it seems. But when he turns around, goes back into the barn here in this issue, we see that the poor harrowers, they've already been tortured to death.
Yeah. Well, not to death. I mean, they're still alive. Right?
Are they? No. I think they're dead. Look at them. Their eyes are glazed over, and their heads are like lolling to the side.
Are they dead?
Yeah, they're dead. They're absolutely dead, I think. They're not even reacting to him. Their eyes are just completely glazed over.
No, gray. You know what? He was talking to them, so I just assumed they were alive and just beat up.
Right. I think he's talking to himself. Yeah, because there's a lot of blood on the floor, and they're all like, their heads are lolling backwards on their necks, and they're just look dead. Okay. And I am curious to know how this happened, because the last we saw of these harrowers, they were in a morgue, right? Performing a kind of ritual where they were like sticking a mask into a corpse and trying to see what the corpse had seen in his last moments. And of course, they see Samuel Hess. They find out his name, and they find out that he's working with Pinhead. And then they were like, we got to get this guy. But then it just cuts to, at the end of the issue 4, to all 3 harrowers being tied up in his barn.
Yeah, so you have to wonder how he caught them.
Yeah, I wish they would have told us how he caught them, because I don't think they would get all the stuff of where he is just from gleaning that last moments of the victim that he had left behind.
Yeah.
But, that's minor. I mean, obviously at some point Hess was leaving clues to have them come over. And I guess you can just argue that that's what he did.
Interestingly, I mean, this is we're only on issue 5 of this whole Boom Hellraiser series, and they've already kind of turned our expectations on their ear, right? I mean, because the harrowers, you expect the harrowers to be the heroes of the series, and all of a sudden, like, most of them are dead.
Yeah, it's like, well, great start, guys.
Yeah.
So, and then we see Kirsty, right? Kirsty is in her truck driving into Nebraska, and she is
leaving a message to Tiffany, right?
Oh, is it to Tiffany?
Yeah. Because her husband's or her fiance's already dead.
Oh, yeah, right. Edgar's gone. You're right. She's leaving a message to Tiffany. Yep.
Yep. But we don't know that yet as you were reading this. The reader doesn't know who she's talking to.
Yeah, she's leaving a message to someone, of course. And then she she stops at a gas station. I like the inventiveness here, where it's like it's one of those old Texaco stations in some dirt road, and she asks the guy, "Hey, do you know where this guy called Samuel Hess is? I'm trying to surprise him." He's like, "Oh yeah, he's just down the farm, ways down the road." So she goes to case the farm first before she drives there to see where the guy might be keeping the harrows.
Yeah.
Questions. It's like, how does she know his name is Samuel Hess? Because the harrows just found that out when they were in the morgue. There's something missing. One of the things that kind of kept me out of the story a little bit when I was reading these comics at the time was there's some major jumps sometimes that happens, and you're like, how did we get to this? How are we here? Yeah. Or, questions about how do these people get to go to all these places? And we're going to find out later that Tiffany has been traveling all around the world, killing people who have stuff about Le Marchand, and it's like it's Munich, and then she's in another country, and then she's like, who bankrolls the harrowers? Yeah. That's what I want to know. I guess I've complained about this in the other episode.
Well, not too far from here, they're going to meet at at Larry's house.
Yeah. I know.
And so it's kind of like, I guess we're going to just have to assume that it's in America, which that bugs me. I don't want to subscribe to that theory, because I think that's really flawed.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So Kirsty is tackling this very strategically, and she kind of approaches the barn, and when she goes in, there's Samuel, right? He's sitting in one of those circles of candles. Yeah. And he's meditating. He's waiting for her arrival so he can offer her to Pinhead. Yeah. And
of course, he doesn't know that he's nothing to Pinhead, despite the fact that he's dedicated his whole life, to this stuff. But compared to Kirsty, he's a nobody.
Yep. So, sure enough, as soon as he gets the box and he says, "Your friends are over there," and she goes over, she sees that they're dead. Meanwhile, Hess, in a matter of seconds, of course, because that's how the box works now in all the movies and comics, he just turns on, opens the box, and you start hearing the bells, and the Cenobites arrive. Yeah. And that's when Samuel knocks her out or immobilizes her, and then the Cenobites are like, "Okay, well, we're here, we're going to get you." And finally, but she's like, "Oh, wait, but Kirsty had enough time somehow to paint a giant sigil on the roof of the barn, right?"
Yeah, I don't get that. So how did they not hear her doing that?
That's the thing, that's the thing. Sometimes the story comes up with these small subterfuges and little twists and turns that I'm like, did you guys put this in because that's what the story needed right now? But you conveniently left out an explanation as to when did she do this?
That looks like it would take like half an hour to an hour with a spray can up there.
I know.
And she'd be walking around up there over their heads and they would hear her. That's
the thing. It's very convenient that she was able to do that. Also, they do set it up. I mean, when she's looking at the barn with the binoculars, you see she's looking at the barn and there's a ladder laying against the front of the barn. Oh. And then when the Cenobites are going to get her and she reveals that there's a sigil painted on the ceiling, then you see that the ladder is now on the side of the barn next to the sigil that she was painting. So I'm assuming that this means that she would be, kind of locking them in. Yeah. But the Cenobites do have what they call a special weapon, which is basically just Butterball, who grabs her from behind.
Yeah, all that work she did, sneaking up on him and, putting that sigil on the roof, and it didn't really matter anyway because Butterball got the drop on her.
Right, and it makes you wonder what was the point of the sigil. What was that supposed to do?
Yeah. They could have skipped that part because it didn't really matter anyway.
Yeah, I think that brings another thing, which is we have seen very little so far of how the Harrowers managed to destroy the Lament configurations, right? And
they use runes that make them vulnerable, and then they smash them.
Yeah, but then is it that easy to just destroy a box then? Is it just with regular stuff you could just destroy a box? But anyway, I'm jumping ahead of this. But I think Kirsty's sigil was supposed to make the Cenobites vulnerable, and then she would shoot them and try to destroy the box. But it just seems like when you think about that procedure, it seems so simple and easy, right?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, okay, then why would the box be such a problem? All you got to do is paint the sigil, open the box, shoot the Cenobites, and then break the box into pieces, and that's it. That's done.
Still dangerous. I mean, the Cenobites are still dangerous, even if they're vulnerable.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of a twist here as well, right? Because what happens is that Pinhead wants to make a deal with Kirsty, and he wants to make a deal and open her to the gift that he would give her, which we'll understand that means taking his spot, because he is looking for a chance at salvation or heaven, which is kind of Pinhead's master plan throughout this. He hands her a knife, and he says, "We need a sacrifice to the altar of Kirsty Cotton. My penance for such a nihilistic necessity, a single blade and a solitary word." So he hands her the blade, and then he says, "Duck." and immediately what she does is she stabs Butterball. She ducks, and then Pinhead chains Butterball and sends him back to hell. Yeah. And then he chains the other two Cenobites, of course, Chatter and the female Cenobite, right? And so I thought this was interesting after watching Hellraiser 2023, because there's that moment in the movie where it's shown that you can sacrifice another Cenobite to the Cenobites.
Yeah, the Chatterer got...
The Chatterer.
Yeah.
And it looks like that's what happens here too, right? Yeah. So turns out that the sacrifice that Pinhead wants to offer is his own brethren.
Yeah.
She manages to kill Chatterer, and the female Cenobite, she escapes, right? She kind of melts away before she can be destroyed, and somehow she makes her way back to hell, even though she's been stabbed in the throat by Kirsty.
Yeah.
But he's like, okay, that's fine. It was going to be a debt of 3 souls. And I'm not sure I understand what Pinhead is talking about here, because he's talking about a debt of 3 souls that he owes Kirsty. Because he's talking about her friends. Her
friends, yeah. So it's like, hey, we killed your friends, so you can kill my 3 people.
Right. And then since Deep Throat disappeared, Samuel has chained. And he said, okay, well, here's another soul. And like... Here's the question. Can you kill a man? He killed your friends. And he's like, yep. And she shoots him right in the face with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that bothers me a little bit about this is that in Hellraiser movies, when people go to hell, it's not like they die and then their spirit goes to hell. It's like they're dragged bodily there. It's and they're not. That's not what's happening in here, right? Her friends are dead in those chairs, and it's their spirits or their souls are in hell, being remade as Cenobites. And that part, I don't know. That's a sort of a digression that I wish they hadn't done.
Well, this is where the whole history of saying, well, there's different continuities for the book, there's different continuities for the comics, and there's different continuities for the movies.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of flat line, not flat line, but that's kind of the base excuse to say we need to have some sort of continuity within each medium, but each medium needs to have room to grow and expand the lore in their own way.
But the comics typically usually evolved from Hellraiser 1 and 2. I mean,
that's true. Except when you start thinking about the movies and you go into Inferno and there's like Kirsty making a deal with Pinhead to offer souls. And it's not like those people that she was killing were being taken body and soul into hell, right? You know what I'm talking about? Inferno. No, Hellseeker. Sorry. Hellseeker.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really count those.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's where the movies start getting a little touch and go with the lore.
Because I think the writers of those movies weren't even writing Hellraiser movies.
Yeah. Well, Hellseeker was, I think, at its core. Wait, Hellseeker? Yes, I think they said it started out as a Hellraiser story, right? Yeah. It was Hellworld that wasn't, and then Deader.
Yeah.
Deader. Yeah, Deader was a different thing. Anyway, so going back to this, and he's like, okay, so Chrissy just killed a guy, right? And And he says, well, what if I told you, you could have your friends back? And then he takes her in with chains, and then he goes like, yeah, so the life for which you've so long suffered and sacrificed, and I will abide that bargain in full for a price, your own, Kirsty. And so he's going to give her the pitch. Okay, so it cuts to Kirsty, Tiffany, right? She's somewhere in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Yeah.
Okay, and she's getting the message from the voicemail from Kirsty. Yeah. And then she says, I'm coming, mother, I'm coming. All right, so I guess she calls her mother in a way.
Yeah. Like she did at the end of Hellbound. Right, she said mommy. Those like the only words she ever said in Hellbound.
Yeah, that and then she says shit, right?
Oh,
when
that's
she says
right.
Shinard.
Yep, that's right. She does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that when she says "mommy," isn't that in the dream when she's reliving her mother being taken by Shinard?
Well, she runs over and hugs Kirsty and says that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, good catch. So they brought that into the comic. Okay, yeah. I like that. And all right, so we're going into issue number 6.
Yep, from August 2011. Same writers again, Clive Barker and Christopher Monfette. Art now is by Stephen Thompson.
It's Tiffany, all right? So she's back. She's returned back to the house on Ludovico Street. That's what it looks like. Good recreation of it there on the splash page. And, of course, she goes in and she sees signs of the house being uninhabited for a while. So one thing I don't really understand, is this supposed to be the house on Ludovico Street, or is this supposed to be the house where Kirsty lived with Edgar? Does she live in the same house where all that stuff happened?
I think she does.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
and
interesting.
I think it's in America, right? It's got to be, because she lives, they live and hang out in America.
So she goes into the kitchen. Tiffany looks at the kitchen. It's full of flies and rotten food.
Yeah.
She goes up to what I think is the damp room, that now it's the art studio. And she sees Kirsty sitting there in one of the rooms inside a circle with the box, right?
Yeah.
And then this is where we get a little tangent to see what Tiffany has been up to. Because she says, I missed you, Tiff. Where the hell have you been? And she's like, killing engineers.
Yeah.
So she shows that she's been in Italy, in Kinshasa, in the Republic of Congo, in Munich, Germany. Yeah. And she's getting closer to men who are collectors of Le Marchand stuff, right?
Yep. And at first you think she's talking about engineers like Cenobite engineers. But no, they're people who are just trying to imitate Le Marchand, who are trying to recreate his stuff. So these are just regular people.
Yeah. One of them has a diary of Le Marchand in Venice. Another guy has some pieces of his machinery, and then there's another guy who had the Glockenspiel, the Pride of Munich, and that he says that was Le Marchand built parts of it, I guess. That's what they're trying to. And then it shows, of course, Kirsty drugging these guys in their drinks and then killing them in bed, or shooting the guy at the top of the Glockenspiel in Munich, or drowning the guy in Venice in a gondola and ripping all the pages of the diary into the canals, moving on from that. Yeah. So, like you said...
So she and Kirsty kind of have a difference of opinion on that stuff. Kirsty thinks that's a little extreme.
Well, Kirsty just shot a guy with a shotgun straight to the head. I mean, he killed the rest of the harrowers, but... Okay. She justifies that, saying to Pinhead that guy was a weapon, he wasn't a human, blah, 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 so that's fine.
Yeah.
But she tells Kirsty that, don't you see, it's a spark. All it ever takes is a spark to burn the world. A spark, he said. I'm not sure who she's mentioning here. Maybe she's mentioning the Le Marchand stuff that she destroyed, because she did have access to his diary. She says that... Edgar's dead. The harrowers are gone. Tell me that you wouldn't kill for them. Tell me that you haven't. And, of course, we know she has. Yeah. And she says, why am I here, Kirsty? What happened in Nebraska? And so what happened was, it's going to flash us back to the barn, right, where Pinhead had Kirsty hanging by the chains. And he says, well, here's how you could have your friends back. Remember how I had Cenobites who were people? You know, we're explorers of sensation, surveyors of suffering. Nothing knows suffering quite as well as something that has lived. And he basically is telling her, if you take my spot, right, then you'll be able to go to hell and you'll be able to bring back your friends as acolytes or Cenobites. Right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of a weird proposition. And
right. I mean,
and then there's
so where are they right now until they become Cenobites? Are they like in some kind of limbo? Are they in stasis? Are they just dead bodies?
Well, it seems like their souls are stuck in hell, right? Because when she goes there, she's going to find out that there's little chambers and little boxes where people are being tortured, and the tortures change every once in a while. So that's where I believe they are.
Yeah.
And here's a funny moment. He hands her the box, right? So the artist that's been working on these pages, he clearly uses a lot of reference materials when he's designing, drawing the Cenobites.
Yeah.
And it looks like for this one, he took a reference image of the box to place it in Kirsty's hands. And he copied the image. I found the image on the internet. And I at the time, I think I posted this on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, that's cool. And this comic of Hellraiser, Pinhead gives Kirsty a Blu-ray box of Hellraisers 1 through 3.
It's got the little handhold
notches on the top.
Yeah, in the circle, it's got the little finger holes that you put your fingers in to pull out the top
of
so
the
you
box.
can get the discs out.
Yeah, the cardboard box.
Yes.
So I was like, oh my god, he should have not put those things in there. But he could have just erased
turned
that.
it on a different side at least.
Well, he couldn't because he
was using
was
an
copying
image.
it. Yeah, he was using an image. He probably took like a Xerox copy of it, and then kind of like printed it on top of this or something like that. But yeah, so there's that. I remember posting that, and then Mark Miller kind of reacted to it, and he said something like, that's funny, man."
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. This is what she said to Tiffany. This is what happened. So he has this idea, this pitch that Pinhead gives her that she can bring back her Harrows if she takes his place, and the Harrows could become Cenobites, and she could run hell as she sees fit.
Yeah, and Tiffany's like, "No, you really shouldn't do that." And she says, "Well, I'm gonna do it anyway." And Tiffany's like, "All right."
Yeah.
Well, I hope you know what you're doing. I mean, that's all paraphrasing, but it's a crazy conversation. I mean, that Tiffany would even, that Kirsty would even consider it. And that Tiffany wouldn't forcibly stop her.
Well, she did slap her, but
that's not enough.
The plan is that, okay, Tiffany, I'll take this proposal, right? I'll go to hell. I'll open the box, and then once I'm gone to hell and I'm being turned into the new Pinhead, I will raise our buddies in there from hell and be with them forever. And then you destroy the box after I'm gone. And, the box is inside that sigil where Kirsty's standing. So that means the box is now vulnerable to being destroyed. And this is the only thing apart from that carousel that they destroyed in the previous issues.
Yeah, this
is the only thing.
The last configuration left.
Right. So, okay. Kirsty opens the box. She gets zapped to hell.
Yeah.
And then there's a kind of an interesting line that Tiffany tells Kirsty. She says, as he sees her disappear into hell, "May your love be a poison, Kirsty Cotton."
Yeah.
And she says, "It always was." And that's one of the things.
And then there's that picture, that postcard of them in front of the Chouinard Institute.
Yeah. They really went all the way on fan service on these first few issues.
Yeah.
I mean, right? You got Pinhead,
Which is cool.
The box being very prominent and being very well designed, or at least copied. You've got the house from Hellraiser making an appearance now in America, I guess. And you have a lot of little quotes that they bring out of the movies and they put in here. One thing I did think it was a little annoying is that "it always was."
Yeah.
Samuel tells that to Kirsty when she gives him the box and said, "Here's the box, it's yours." And he says, "It always was." And now Tiffany says, "May your love be a poison," and Kirsty says, "It always was." And it's like, okay, guys.
And it's going to happen again in the next episode. Kirsty's going to say it, I think, again in the next issue.
And it's like, we get it, guys. You're referencing the movie, fine. But you don't have to go overboard with this stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to hit us over the head with it.
Right. Well, Tiffany destroys the box, right? So she's left in an empty room with a broken box.
Yeah.
And she's like, God, I hope you're right about this.
Yeah. So now we are back on, now we're on issue 7, which is Requiem Part 3. And this time art by Stephen Thompson and Janusz Ordon.
I love the cover on this one, right? I particularly like, I don't know what issue you got because these came sometimes with alternative.
Mine is cover B, so I'm not sure which cover you're looking at.
I am looking at cover A, and that's the one with the female Cenobite in the cover. A really good painting. Okay. She's holding 2 knives, with her arms kind of crossed in front of her.
My cover B has Pinhead on the left and then Kirsty on the right, and then there's like a bunch of bodies spilling out of a tunnel in between them.
Nice. Okay. So Kirsty went through the portal and she opens up in what looks like paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she sees her dad there in the distance. She sees Edgar. She sees her 3 friends, and she's like, oh, wow, here we are, and where are we?
And then they kind of just disintegrate.
Yeah. Yep. It's just a dream. It's just an illusion.
Oh yeah, and then
it all comes crashing down.
That splash page that you had put in on the show notes there.
Yeah. The entire semblance of paradise and people around her kind of breaks away like a mirror and falls down, and she finds out she's in hell. Right? She's in the labyrinth.
Yeah, and and you can see Leviathan with the light shooting out of the sides, and there's the skeletal dragon. And I think later on in these issues, what do they call them? Like an Erebor, or they've got a name for those dragons, and I can't remember what it is.
I don't remember yet, but I'm sure once we read those issues, it'll all come back to us.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
I like this splash; it's really nice.
Yeah, it is really nice.
You've got the labyrinth that looks just like in the movie. You've got that big flying dragon. I really dig that they brought that back.
I wish that the movies had, we've talked about this before, but I wish that the movies had continued Leviathan and the labyrinth.
I know.
It was a shame that they didn't all the way until the most current one.
I know. It was great to see them bring back the labyrinth and the giant form of Leviathan showing up over the house of the millionaire Voight. That was really cool to see. Yeah,
it's way better than having. Let's have a Hellraiser party where people take drugs that make them hallucinate Cenobites. That's way better.
That's way better. Okay, so she's in hell, right? So she's going to be walking around these Escher-looking, landscapes of stairs and tunnels and stuff, and she's like, "Wait, I'm just alone here. Where's Pinhead?" And then she crosses a corner, and I think she's being watched by the female Cenobite, right?
Yep. And then she sees an engineer, and I can just hear the engineer music. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah. She follows this path. Kirsty follows this path to this floating kind of castle, and she walks through that walkway, and she sees that engineer inside, like. He's sharpening up an axe, and there's like corpses screaming and chains hanging from the ceiling, and he's basically working on some instruments of torture.
Yeah.
And he chases Kirsty, so we get that little flashback to the first movie again.
Yeah, he's going down the narrow hallway, kind of pushing himself along the walls.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a big scythe comes swooshing by, right? And it kind of disembowels the engineer, and he falls down, and Kirsty looks up and grabs a hand, and it's the female Cenobite.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I don't understand. Why are you saving me?" So she's like, "Yeah, let's. It's not safe to stay here, and our engineer will fix himself." So she takes Kirsty, and she says, "I want to help you," right? She says, "Why are you helping me? After Pinhead betrayed you, and you know why I'm here for." And And she's like, well, let me show you something. And a giant chain, just like in Hellraiser 2023, comes down and smashes into the ground and holds onto the block where they are and starts lifting it up very slowly, right?
Yeah. And so they kind of ride it like the glass elevator from Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
Except they're on top of it instead of inside.
They're on top of it.
Yeah.
But this is what I was mentioning a little earlier, where you see all these people in their own little private hells and their glass boxes hanging from giant chains being tortured. There's a guy being like tortured by bees or whatever, or bugs.
There's one with like saws.
Yeah, circular saws kind of like slicing at him. And yeah. And then we see like the whole machinery of hell, the gears of hell, and I guess Leviathan. She's helping Kirsty because she's like, I'm going to help you get to Pinhead. I'm going to make sure you're not hurt or chained or whatever, because she's basically says, all right, I'll help you. If you take his place, I just ask for one thing, right?
Yeah.
So she just wants one thing. She wants to be the one that's responsible for torturing Pinhead after he becomes a human if he doesn't go to paradise.
Right, because she's pretty sure he's going to fail. She's like, why would they let him into heaven? I mean, come on. Right. So as soon as he gets back here, I want him.
Yeah, I guess even if it takes years for him to die and get back to hell.
Yeah. And Kirsty's like, sure. Yeah,
that's my deal. Vengeance is patience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and Pinhead is meanwhile he's playing that organ that we saw him play in the first issues, right?
Yeah. And can I just say that
Leviathan?
I like these comics, but this does bug me. The switch, the artist switch between from one page to the next all of a sudden, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's really
it is a little jarring.
And it's not like we're switching chapters or comics. It's just all of a sudden, why is this happening?
Yeah, I'm imagining deadlines or something like that, or maybe people had to be drafted into other projects and they're like, I can't do this one anymore.
Yeah, we need these pages now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's some foreshadowing here where the organ of lost souls, right? It's talking to Pinhead and saying, yes, she does not know the consequence of destroying the Toymaker's devices. And she's like, yeah, that's what I'm gambling on. And basically the organ of souls is saying, yeah, but how are you so, confident that this is going to work for you? What might possibly earn you access to go back to heaven? He basically says that, never doubt that one might steal salvation, just as I convinced her to accept damnation.
And I think I'm trying, and honestly, I can't even remember what his plan was to get into heaven. And I think that by the time they get to that point, they switch writers. And I think that it's not, from what I remember, I don't think his plan to get into heaven is never really clear.
Well, I've just been reading the issues that we're going to discuss, and it's been a long time since I've read them, so I'm not entirely sure if I remember everything correctly. So I'm just going along with it as we learn them again.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get back to that. But I'm just and right now I can't even remember what the consequence is of smashing the last puzzle box. So we'll find that out again too.
Yeah, not in this episode, but in the next time we talk about the comics.
Yeah.
So Pinhead wants access to the Sanctum, and I mean the Sanctum, I think, is supposed to be inside of Leviathan, right?
Yeah, so where he can talk to Leviathan directly.
Because the female Cenobite and Kirsty are standing in front of Leviathan on a long hallway, and the door opens in that giant diamond.
Yeah.
And the engineer comes out again and again. Kirsty kind of throws one of the female Cenobites aside and kind of decapitates him. It annoys me that every time this happens, it's so easy for Kirsty to just kill a Cenobite or kill a monster like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's just a small knife. That shouldn't really decapitate a giant monster like that. But
she's become Ash Williams.
Yes.
Because she's dealt with Cenobites so much that all of a sudden she's an expert on killing them.
And then Kirsty walks over the dead engineer, or the engineer that's very damaged, and she goes into the Sanctum and up the stairs as she sees Pinhead inside of Leviathan. Right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the female Cenobite also looks like Grace Kirby for some reason.
Yeah.
I guess it's the change of the artist.
Yeah.
Which takes us to the next issue, right? Had a really cool cover. I got cover A for this one, which is that cover with Pinhead, and his hand is like covering his face.
Oh yeah, which has become a meme in every single Hellraiser group.
Right, it's a Tim Bradstreet cover. I think.
Wait, we're on. Oh no, wait, we're doing. Let's see,
issue 8.
Issue 8. Yeah, I don't have that cover. I have. Cover B.
Well, since I think cover A has become the most popular, what is cover B?
Cover B is Kirsty's Pinhead face looking up from from like a downward, like she's lying on the ground looking up.
Okay.
Like a side profile.
Yeah, I like the Tim Bradstreet cover a lot. That's the one I got. So, all right. Palm. So we get a glimpse of inside of Leviathan, right? Yeah. It's pretty cool. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it was neat.
Everything is kind of resplendent gold, and there's like shapes of the box and the star configuration on the floor, and there's all sorts of things like Cenobite maker pieces on the side of it, on the inside.
Yeah, but then it changes, and then it's like they're in like an office building or something.
I know, it's so weird. Sometimes that's another one of those things that the jarring transitions from one set to the next. Like how much time has passed? How did they get here? Yeah. It looks like they're inside an office building, but they're just inside some sort of like torture room where he's like shaving all of her hair and
with like a sickle, right? So he's doing it really carelessly. So he's cutting up her scalp.
And then he says, now it's your turn. And then he gives her pliers, and Kirsty goes to town on Pinhead's pins. So she's like taking those pins out of his head. And he's like, and it's mutual torture. And I kind of dig this, that they would be in equal footing and they would be like torturing each other. And whatever one does, the other does to the same person. And so she's like, okay. And now Pinhead and her are all bloodied up. And she's like, what happens next? And I guess it comes to taking off their outfits, right? Because these weird tentacles come down and they slice the clothes out of them.
Yeah, I don't know how Pinhead could even take his clothes off because they're all like sewn through his skin.
Well, it gets torn off by those tentacles, right? That's what I got.
Yeah, I see. Yep.
And he tells her to savor the pain. It's the last sensation you'll ever truly feel.
Yeah.
And that's a callback to the first issues where basically Pinhead explains that he's bored of hell because once you've gone to a certain limit, then you don't really experience any joy, anything. It's just empty and Well,
and it's like his transformation in Hellbound, right, where he says, the suffering.
Yes. And so that happens to Kirsty now. And I want to imagine that these tentacles that come down and envelop Kirsty and wrap her in some white cloth. And when they come out, she is the new Pinhead, right? She's got a white tunic with a red sash, a big red sash that drops from her side. And then her face is now full of the same ridges and pins that Pinhead had.
Yeah.
I want to believe that the tentacles grabbed the pins from Pinhead off the floor and just stuck it on her head.
That's what I think, too, because she talks about, it seems like it was a transfer of power. I don't think they're new ones.
And then Pinhead now is just a bloodied corpse, deprived of all his regalia. He just says, Kirsty, the painter, the creature, the mother of lies.
I know. I mean, that was a
title of a book.
Yeah. Yep.
And I wish they had added some context to that, not just drop it there as like, hey, remember this book? Remember the title?
Yeah, I know.
Hey, this is what we're putting here. Kirsty's now the painter, the creature, the mother of lies. Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah.
In what way? Just don't just drop that in there.
Right, yeah, it doesn't, I mean, yes, she's a painter, and I guess now she's a creature, but mother of lies, how?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of makes a little bit of sense, but I just feel like this is a little fan service here, which part of me does appreciate it, but part of me does get a little annoyed at it, like, Okay. Yeah, I know what you guys are doing.
There's going to be a lot of little fan Easter eggs throughout because Seraphim people have so heavily involved with this.
Right. Like I said, I'm ambivalent about these little nods and quotes. It's just that part of me also thinks, maybe you could have put something else there, like, the mother of lies. Now you've lied to yourself or something like that. Give us a little more.
Work it in a little.
Exactly.
Better. Yeah.
Work it in. Yeah. Don't just drop it. Yeah. So what happens to Pinhead now, Ryan?
Yeah. So So he's thinking, okay, we did our thing, and Kirsty's like, no, I'm not quite finished with you yet, and she uses her tunic. It kind of is like Pinhead's chains, so it kind of stretches and grows and grabs him, and she tears him apart.
Yes, I think what she's doing is she's skinning him, right? She's dragging bits of his skin, like you see a part of his facial skin with his nose and one eye. You see like the hand skin taken like a glove. You see bits of his flesh just being ripped and torn. And then, his bluish skin is being removed, and he goes like, I'm starting to feel again. I can feel the warmth. I can feel the cold touch of air, the warmth of light.
Yeah.
And so basically what Kirsty does next is, all right, this is why I'm here. So she brings out 4 monoliths off the floor. And basically she's bringing back her 3 horror friends and Edgar, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is where Pinhead has his last laugh, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because she's like, haha, joke's on you. I smashed the lament configuration, and he's laughing because he's like, oh, you have no idea what you did by doing that.
Yeah, and he knows that his friends can never come back the way they were, right?
Yeah.
So he says, yes, every ruler needs subjects. So he's kind of telling her they're not going to be your friends. They're just going to be, reanimated versions of them. And then he starts laughing because she says she broke the box. And he's like, you waged a war against the Toymaker's creations, unaware of what would occur should you win. And she's like, what are you talking about? He whispers, oh, you'll see.
Yeah.
So, of course, she gets mad. She wants to know what he's talking about. And he's like, not really. No, turn around and look at your friends. And
yeah.
And they've turned into demons, right? The Cenobites.
Yeah, and they're not Cenobites like we would know them. I mean, they look more like ghouls or monsters. They don't have like hooks and chains and barbs and spikes and stuff.
One of them is like a flayed corpse on fire. One is more like a saber-toothed kind of like hybrid creature.
Yeah,
like a werewolf. One of them looks like the woman looks like a giant monster. And there's another guy who looks like he's wearing some sort of armor, or looks like almost like a dragon face or something.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like the last laugh of Pinhead is like, she says, oh, I'm sorry, my friends, I failed you. And Edgar, or what used to be Edgar, says, nonsense. Our marriage would have made liars of us. And she's like, I don't understand. And he says, now not even death can do us part.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's kind of cool. And now Pinhead's like, okay, we made a deal. Now you got to let me go. And she's like, sure, I'll let you go right after the Harrowers tear your soul apart.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I just put him back together, but let's tear him apart one more time.
Yeah. And so what happens next? We go back to Ludovico Street, right?
And we've got moving men in Ludovico Street.
Yes, moving men carrying what?
A mattress.
A mattress. Yes. And so, I don't know. It's unclear how long it's been going on, but they're talking about, this house has been empty for a year. And then we're thinking about the movie where they're bringing it in. These guys are taking the stuff out of the house so they can put the house in auction.
And they just happen to see
they hear a noise.
Elliot Spencer with no skin.
Yeah, they hear a noise on the top floor, and one of them goes up and opens the door and goes like, damn. Holy shit. Hey, guy, are you okay? Buddy, you need a doctor?
Yeah. I am Captain Elliot Spencer.
All right. Now explain something to me. And I know you're not Chris Monfette or Clive Barker, but why is it that when Pinhead was sent back, he resurrected in the Ludovico Street instead of whatever place he was turned into Pinhead.
All I can think, I was thinking about that too, and all I can think of is that he had to go back out where Kirsty came in.
Yeah, that's probably it. You're right.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah.
Yes. And so Doug Bradley is back. They made him look a little bit like Doug Bradley.
Yeah, but right now he's kind of all bloody and flayed. Once he gets cleaned up, he'll look more like Doug Bradley.
But he's alive. He's alive.
Yeah.
So this is the first step of his plan, right? So,
yeah.
Okay, he's no longer Pinhead, and he went back to the world of the living, and now he has a plan to go to heaven somehow.
Yeah.
So these issues were pretty cool. When I saw them, I was really happy with them. You know, apart from that thing with the Hellraiser box that looks like the Blu-ray box and whatever. But I'm on board.
When these comics first came out, I never expected this is, of course, Kirsty and Pinhead are going to switch places.
In various Hellraiser fandom circles, there was always that thing about, Clive wants to make a female Pinhead, or what if Kirsty made a deal with Pinhead? What if that went through? So I think for a while Clive wanted to do that.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
I think we could also try to tie in a little bit of Hellraiser the Toll, that book that was written by Mark Miller.
Right, and based on a short story that Clive had started, I think, that hadn't finished.
Yeah. So that kind of ties in with Scarlet Gospels, but I feel like it kind of brings the same kind of Kirsty, the same kind of badass Kirsty that we see in the comic books, where she's actually looking to find a way to challenge Pinhead once and for all. I think that's always been kind of like that engine that drives the first few Hellraisers, at least the first two, and Hellseeker, is that dichotomy that we all wanted to see what happens to Kirsty, right? We all want to know what happens afterwards. Where does she go? What does she do after going through that whole experience?
And we got a little hint of that in Hellraiser 3, right? Because there's, well, not really. It's just a videotape of Kirsty from the Institute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in Hellraiser 6, Kirsty is back, but it doesn't really feel like the same character.
So next up is Heaven's Reply.
Yeah. Yep. Those will be the next set of them that we do, starting with issue 9. And also coming up next, we'll be reviewing the Scarlet box, which is not the Scarlet box, but the Quartet of Torment, The
Scarletist box.
Yeah. And coming back to Jericho Squad, we'll have A to Z commentaries for Survival of the Dead. We need to get back to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I'm looking more forward to Evil Dead once we do that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember much about Survival of the Dead, only that I think it's on an island.
Okay. I've never seen it, so that's going to be interesting. And more Boom Hellraiser comics, discussion with news.
Yeah.
And more classic commentaries as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we only have one left.
Yeah, which one is it? Do you know?
Barn of the Blood Llama.
Oh, closing with the gold key.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Live at Dallas Fort Worth.
Yeah. So that's it for this episode, and this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our new Discord server. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Opening music by Ray Norrish, end credit music by Matt Furness.
Thanks for listening.